Hey everybody, Alan back here with Bass to Basics. Another episode here. Going to go in depth on a little bit tonight about the fall transition. We're going into September now. Down here in the south, we're a little bit before. It's not quite fully in effect yet. Some of you that live up north, you're probably already experiencing it. But basically what this is when the water starts to cool, it creates different activity in the fish and they act a little differently and the baits will switch up. So let's go over that a little bit here. So what's going to happen is the temperature at night's what you're really going to be worried about. The temperature during the day, it still may be warm, but when it starts to get down colder at night, to where you get up first thing in the morning or at night, you start to consider wearing a hoodie, fish are going to start acting differently. They're going to start pushing up and corralling bait fish to feed. They are pretty active this time of year. It's one of those times of year where you can have some really, really fun days fishing, because if you find some pockets, some little coves, they're going to corral the bait fish and they'll be sitting just off those shallow points, or they'll be in thick cover. Your laydowns, on your logs, you find a stump with a hole in it, they'll be tucked in there. But they'll also be sitting just off those flatbeds they're going to push those bait fish into. They're going to corral them up in there, and then they're going to feed on them. So when you're fishing the fall transition, you really, really want to mimic bait fish. That's going to be your biggest thing, is you want to mimic what they're eating. Now, if you're going for some of those in the heavier cover, there's a few different ways you'll go. I'm going to do two different videos tonight. The first one is going to be hard baits and jigs. The next will be soft baits and different presentations you can use to catch them in the fall transition. There are a few basic baits that will catch no matter what lake you're on, no matter if you go out morning, day, evening, night. Fall transition, these baits will catch fish. That's going to be your lipless crankbaits. That's going to be your Squarebills, your jigs, and some sort of a walking bait. You can fish those in a lot of different ways, and it will work. A couple other things that you can fish are like spoons, especially when those shad, if your lake has shad in it, if they're bait balling, big schools of shad, small baby shad, you drop that spoon right in it, and those fish are going to sit right under that bait ball. Especially the larger fish are going to sit there and they're going to pick off the dying fish as they come down. That's a great way to catch them. These are some baits that I personally love to use in the fall transition time that work well for me. Color wise, you're going to want to mimic shad. That's going to be the primary thing this time of year. If you got shad in your lake, you want to mimic the shad. So those chrome colors, silvers, the white colors, you want to mimic those shad. If your fishery does not have shad in it, the next best thing is to mimic crawfish, mimic the crawl patterns, or potentially bluegill as well. You're fishing smaller ponds and everything, you're probably going to want to mimic crawfish and bluegill, because that's primarily what they're going to be feeding on. But if you're in, like, let's say Lake Lanier, a lot of these larger river systems that have shad, shad patterns are going to be what's going to get you the best results this time of year. So the other thing to remember is you can fish very erratically this time of year. You want to have all kinds of crazy movements in your baits. You want to mimic fleeing bait fish, dying bait fish, because they're going to be schooling them and corralling them up into the shallows, and they're going to be chasing them and eating them. So you can be very erratic, and you can have a lot of fun fishing this time of year. So first thing we're going to talk about is the tried and true, the lipless crankbait. I've got a couple in here. What I have to add to this, and I'll add that probably this week, is some crawl colors. I happened to look through this a couple nights ago and realized I did not have any crawl patterns that are very good crawl patterns. Some of the ponds and things I fish in around here, a couple of the lakes don't have a lot of shad or any shad, so I'm going to have to adjust for that. But basically, here's been one of I fell in love with Guggen baits. This is their clutch, And as you can see, it's more of a shad type pattern. It's white. That's got that silver reflectiveness on the side. As you've heard me say before, the more ways you can attract the fish, the better. These little, they're basically little stickers on the side here, but they're reflective. They're going to reflect some light. And if you're jerking this thing erratic, it's going to flash. That flash can catch a fish's attention. It's a lot more thin profile on the top, which I really like. It's got a chartreuse belly, and this thing has crazy action. It's got a pretty loud thud to it, and the hooks are razor sharp. These things, they're great hooks. So, and with these, what you're going to want to do is, when you're fishing, especially if you're fishing off of grass, let it sink down in the grass and just rip it out. Rip it through the grass, because you want it to have that jerky, erratic pattern. And as you're retrieving them, be popping it, different cadences. Pop, pop, reel, pop, pop. Let it pause a little bit. Have it jerking all over the place, very erratic. And that's going to trigger a lot of bites in that fall transition. I just picked this up at Academy. It's a little smaller profile. The small profiles in the fall transition work very well because a lot of the shad this time of year are smaller. And once again, it's got that silver, black back, white belly, mimicking a shad. That silver is also very reflective. That chrome silver, it's going to make a lot of shine, a lot of flash in the water. So if you're jerking it around and it's bouncing all over, it's going to be shining like crazy. It's going to get a lot of attention. And it's a different rattle, different noise. Fish could be attracted to a completely different noise day to day. You never know. So you got to figure out what they're after. I do have another Guggen here in the sexy shad type color. It's got that yellow on the sides, got that blue with the flake on the top. And this is a great color this time of year. And don't be afraid to go to a silent lipless. I don't have any yet. That's another thing I'll be adding to this. Is a couple silents. Getting ready for this fall transition, going into fall, because the lipless crankbait will work wonders all the way through fall. I do have a Fire Tiger, the old Bella Lewis rattle trap. It's a tried and true Fire Tiger. It just works. I've got this bait ball here. Once again, it's got some flash to it. It's got some green to it. Just something a little different. If I'm going after maybe a bluegill, that green hue to it will work a little better, and it's clear, so it's going to have a lot more shimmer to it. And then just some of the old school rattle traps, the different styles like that. But you want to fish it very erratic. You want it to really look like a dying or scurrying bait fish, and that's what will trigger those bites. The next thing I'm going to talk about are crankbaits. Primarily Squarebills. I have a few different ones in here. Once again, shad, crawl, bluegill type patterns. This is a KVD silent Squarebill, just a natural shad color. And what you want to do is you run this in those shallow areas to those little ledges, 3, 4, 5 foot drop offs. Bang it up against things. That's what you want. You want to create that erratic notion, so you can pop it as you're reeling it back and cause it to jerk around. But the best way these work is you throw them out by some laydowns, on the edge of laydowns, and don't be afraid to get them in there, because that bill's going to hit it and it's going to pop off, and when it hits that and pops off, it's going to jerk around very erratically, and that's going to trigger a lot of bites. I also have that in, once again, the Sexy Shad. Sexy Shad is just a tried and true amazing color. I've got some Guggens over here. They're flat bangers. This is a crawl type pattern that I've been using a lot here recently. And I've got some different crawl style colors in here. Also, if I'm fishing a little bit darker water, I'll switch up to a more vibrant color too, just to get the attention, and those always work pretty well. I'm not that great at fishing deep areas yet. I fish from the bank primarily, so you know, deep diving crankbaits just aren't something I have a lot of, but I do have a few. I've got some crawl pattern style, 6 to 8 foot range divers there. I've got this guy in a fire tiger, but a good square bill is going to work wonders, especially bouncing it off cover, bouncing it off rock piles, getting that erratic action. It's gonna, I love it. And next thing I want to talk about, a lot of people forget about these in the fall transition, but jerkbaits. Jerkbaits, I've had probably just as much success on a jerkbait as I have on a lipless, believe it or not, throughout my years. And what I do when I will throw a jerkbait is I find early morning or at dusk, right as the sun's going down, getting a jerkbait tends to work very well. But I also find if I see bait balls, I don't have many spoons. I really don't have hardly any spoons, which I need to stock up on for wintertime. But I find that when there's bait balls, you can throw that jerkbait in there, especially, something like these, which are suspending jerkbaits. This is a much deeper diver in that sexy shad color. Got a loud thud to it. And I got this guy. It doesn't dive nearly as deep, but it's a little clear. It's the same kind of sexy shad, but it's got a clear belly and a little bit different rattle. What I'll do is I'll throw those out there. I'll reel them, just out behind the bait ball, reel it down a little bit, and then I'll start popping it in through the bait ball. And 9 out of 10 times, that's where I get my strike. It's when I'm popping it through that bait ball. The fish that are hanging out just underneath that bait ball, they're going to smash it every time you pull it through. Another color I'll throw a lot of is just a clear. With clear baits, one of the cool things is if it's very sunny out especially, they don't get a good look at it. So if you're fishing a lot of schooling bait fish, a lot of shad, they're not going to get a good look at it. They're just going to see the reflection. They're going to see a silhouette. They're going to see something moving erratically. It's going to trigger them to come up and investigate and want to bite. And like I said, this time of year, these fish are very, very active. They're wanting to eat and eat and eat, because when the water gets too cold, they're going to sit on the bottom and sit with their bellies in the mud and not move at all. And they're going to get as fat as they can while they can. And then you got just a standard shad pattern here. This is a Lucky Craft. And tip for any of you guys out there, I don't know what your local ollies might have. If you have ollies, I got these Lucky Craft jerk baits. I got a bunch of them for like $4 or $5 a piece. Anybody that knows Lucky Craft knows that these are high quality baits, and they usually retail anywhere from 15 to 20 bucks a piece. Check out all these, because you never know what you might find. But I got a bunch of them. I got a fire tiger here. But these shad patterns, I'm telling you, this time of year, anything that's got a shad kind of look to it, especially, or crawl patterns, once again, like doesn't have shad, you're gonna have a field day with them. Next thing I'm gonna get to is some of the top water options. Now I've got a few different things in here, and a lot of people don't like throwing it this time of year, but I will throw a whopper plopper kind of thing. These are Chopos from Berkeley, but I will throw a whopper plopper early in the morning, or if there's a little bit of ripple on the water, it's a little windy, I'll throw one of those. They work pretty well, but where you're really going to get a lot of bites, this time of year is something with a walking action. You want that erratic action. These right here, these are Berkeley Jaywalkers. I fell in love with these. I actually, I started out with this one, which is just a bluegill pattern. And in a lot of my local fisheries, we don't have a lot of shad in most of them, but we have a ton of bluegill. And this right here has caught me quite a few fish. These jaywalkers, I just bought this one a couple days ago. Have not fished it yet. It's just a bone color version. But that walking action it has is so smooth and so subtle. You can walk it slow and get those long, drawn out walks, or you can pop this thing back and forth erratically, and it's going to walk very, very true. I've had nothing but love for this. I personally prefer it over the head and spook. Maybe I just don't fish the spook right. I don't know, but this I can't say enough good about this. These jaywalkers are incredible, and a lot of it is you're getting that walking motion, getting that scurrying, fleeing kind of motion. It's erratic. The bass are, they're ambushing. They're investigating. They're hungry. They're going to be that's going to be the thing that they're going to strike on the most. And then you got these other types of walking baits here. The one. This is actually put out by Monster Bass. It's called the Patriot. I actually bought this at Sportsman's Warehouse. I have a blue one that I got in my Monster Bass box this month, tied on right now, that I've been using a lot. This one I bought. It's clear, but it's got that. It's a clear shad pattern basically. And it's got a red hook. No, red hooks do not mimic blood, all that you'll hear. What it does, and this is something I learned from watching Tactical Bassin', Matt Allen and the other guys there. I've learned a ton from them. But what this red hook does, especially on a clear bait, it gives the bass a target, because they can't necessarily see the bait, but it can see that red hook. And if you get a bass to attack from the front as opposed to the rear, I've always found that I have much better hookup ratios when a bass eats the bait from the front than from the rear. They don't miss as much, and usually they engulf this way as opposed to hitting from the side. So that gives it a target, and that's what you want. You want it to key in on that hook right there. So I'm a big fan of changing over to red hooks. I actually need to buy some and change some of my other ones, but that's a different story. But these have that they up and down as you walk, and they'll spit a little water. So on those mornings where it's perfectly calm and you want to cause a little commotion, draw some attention, this is what I'll throw instead of a jaywalker. And then I've got a Academy series just in a white with an orange belly. So you can still use walking frogs. You can still use a lot of things, but I prefer just a standard walking bait. I think it works a little better. The last thing I'm going to touch on in this video are jigs. Now, when you're out and maybe there's not a lot of shallow pans where you're at from the or a lot of cove from the corral to bait fish into, but there's a lot of cover. There's stumps, there's trees, there's heavy grass, thick grass that you necessarily can't rip a lipless through. That's when I go to my jig. I've got a jig tied on in our bedroom right now on one of my poles just for that reason. It allows you to get down in there. A lot of those fish sometimes are sitting in that cover. They're waiting to ambush. They're waiting for those bait fish to come by, because what they will also do, and I've seen it year in, year out, they'll sit in that cover off the bank, or even right on the bank sometimes. And as those bait fish come by, they're hidden. They're in that cover, and they'll jump out and ambush it. So, I keep a lot of different color variations. I mean, I've got my wife's here. She's got these little pink. We actually went and bought some skirts and some jig heads and just made our own for fun. She's got her little pretty jigs, but the ones I go to more than anything this time of year, I got a rattling jig right here. This thing, it's actually, my wife bought it. She really wanted to get into jig fishing, but she wanted something that made some noise. Got a little just standard white crawl on the bottom there as a trailer. It's a slight rattle, but it's also got a swim style head. You can swim this, and it works really well. That white shad pattern. I don't have any other white ones right now. I need to get some, but I will also throw natural colors. This is a Guggen. It's a 5/16. It's a little small, but it's a bluegill color. I've had great success on it. I can't say enough good about Guggen baits. You can ask my wife. The color scheme alone, black and neon green, is my favorite color scheme. But their baits are so good. They're so well made. They're worth the money that they charge. I do think their plastic sometimes may be a little. They get beat up pretty easily. I'll say that, but they're great. I mean, the actions and everything, they put a lot of time into these, and they're amazing. I also have, kind of like I'm not sure what you call it. It's like a crawl pattern, but it's got that, it's vibrant, but it's got those browns and blacks. It's got the gold, shiny head there. I'll throw something like this. This is a 1/2 ounce. I've got one, just the brown and black. I keep a river bug, a Bass Pro river bug on it. This one is a 3/8. Just those crawl patterns. Like I said, if you don't have shad in your fishery, you got to have some crawl patterns. And I've got the smallies. I've got the small ones here with the small beaver baits. I prefer beaver baits on beavers or crawls on all my jigs. But you got to have some small ones. You never know when you might need a small finesse jig. And you got to have a good selection of black and blues. I got the little cross eyes there. Got a couple of the Guggens. This is a thick jig. It's a 1/2 ounce. This thing is amazing. Just sits up like that. Your trailer's kicking all over the place. These things are incredible. So you won't get me to say anything bad about Guggen. They're just amazing. I've got this one here, which is a I don't remember what company this is. I got this in a mystery tackle box I bought at Academy, but it's got a Missile Baits D-bomb on the back of it, black and blue. So, a little smallie here, a little tiny guy. But it's like a green pumpkin kind of color. And I just keep a lot of different things like that. I always have my swim jigs ready to go, but this time of year they get kind of put away. So, you want to have different varieties, different styles that you can go to. And when I go out, I'm usually carrying between 2 and 3 rods. When we go bank fishing, fall transition, I'm going to have a lipless tied on. I'm going to have a jig tied on. And I'm probably going to have a Texas rig tied on. And the next video, I'm going to go into the plastics, the finesse, and the more power style fishing. I do hope that you learned a little something from this video. Like, subscribe, leave comments. I really want to hear the feedback. I'm trying very hard. Like I said, I don't have all the knowledge like a lot of these guys do, but I'm giving knowledge as I'm learning. So what I'm trying to do is reach out to the average angler from the same standpoint you may be in, so we can learn together. That's what I want to do, is help people learn as I'm learning and relearning this, this sport that I love dearly. So, like I said, like, subscribe, turn somebody onto this channel. I really want it to take off. I really want to be able to help people out. So, I got a Facebook and an Instagram page coming for the channel this weekend. We'll be investing in a GoPro for some live videos, and my monster bass and rush tackle boxes should be here in the next week or so for some unboxing. I know I did not put up last month's monster bass. I completely forgot about it. We opened it, we made a video. The video ended up being poor quality. I'd already boxed a lot of the baits, so I do apologize for that, but we're going to try to get content coming a lot more often. My wife's been under the weather, and I've been working a lot more recently, so content got a little slow, but we're going to be posting a lot in the next few days. I just want to let you guys know I appreciate all the support. I appreciate everything up to this point, and I hope I can keep helping you. Until next time, have a good night.